I just wrapped up my third week of combining powerlifting and running at the same time. And to be honest, I've had a great time so far. It's very fulfilling and never thought that I'd actually enjoy this. That being said, I actually got injured this past Saturday at the tail end of my SBD day during my deadlift single, which I'll talk about later in the video. But it made me sit back and think that maybe I'm doing a little too much too quickly because this is all still very new to me. The original plan was to do an evaluation of my performance after 4 weeks, but since I got injured at the tail end of week 3, I'm just going to cool it for the rest of the week with powerlifting based movements and stick to relatively easy bodybuilding movements that aren't going to cause my lower back to seize up since that's where the injured area is. First, let's talk about the running portion since this is a relatively easy topic and there's not really too much to discuss since all I'm doing right now is doing up to 20 miles a week. I'm getting very, very close to just saying, screw it, let's do 25, 30 miles a week. But especially after what happened this past week, I think my body's telling me to cool it and just ease your way into these higher intensity and higher volume periods. My normal zone 2 pace of 9:10 to 9:20 has transformed into 10:30 or sometimes even 11 minutes, depending on the day. It's summer. I live in Texas. It's very hot. And especially where I live, I do get a lot of headwinds. And the other thing, too, which I'm a little grateful for, and you might call me masochistic for this, is there are a lot of rolling hills where I live. The reason I say that's good is because this is something that I really struggled with during the Austin Marathon. For those of you that don't know, it is a very, very hilly course. I don't know why I picked that for my first marathon, but I am getting a little bit better at hill running. But back to the whole zone 2 thing, I'm okay with slower paces right now, again, because I'm just reacclimating my body into this and I'm not really training for a race right now. And because I'm capping myself at 6.2 miles and never go above that, basically a 10K, I don't get any of the knee pain that I normally would get or the hip pain or lower back pain. Everything's actually been very, very smooth sailing in the running department. But now let's talk about powerlifting because this is the thing that's going to be drastically changing starting next week. Not really in a negative way, but just more methodical with everything going on. And I'm not going to sit here and blame running because that's a very silly thing for me to do. If anything, it's mostly because I took 4 years off of any serious powerlifting programming. That's a very long break. And to make a long story short, what happened was my nervous system caught up before my muscles did. Here's what the original approach was. Monday would be bench with some overall pressing bodybuilding movements. Tuesday would be a bodybuilding focused back day, so back, biceps, rear delts. Wednesday would be a leg day with low bar squat being the primary movement, and I would not be doing any conventional or sumo this day. If anything, I would do a hinge movement like RDLs using the belt squat or some dumbbells. Thursday would be a day off. Friday would be a primer session on bench, and Saturday would be SBD with singles on all of the movements. Not easing my way into doing anything with some maybe sets of 5, sets of 3. No, I just went straight into singles. This isn't all bad, though. There is some good that came out of this. I now know what my baseline strength is after about 3 weeks of consistent training. My squat is at 220 kilos or 485 pounds. My bench is at 145 kilos or 319 pounds. And my conventional deadlift is at 240 or 529 pounds. Do I wish these numbers were higher? Absolutely. I basically have a 600 kilo total now. But I need to remember that at one point in my powerlifting career, I would do anything I could to hit these specific numbers. And here I am hitting them after taking basically 4 years off of any serious powerlifting programming. So I'm happy. So, what exactly is going to change going forward? The first and probably most drastic is I'm only going to be doing conventional deadlifts, at least for now. I need to think of this long term as I'm slowly ramping up my running volume to 40, 45, 50 miles a week. And I'm thinking very long term, that's going to be a lot on my knees and my hips. The last thing I want to do is add additional stress to those areas which my sumo tends to do. So that's why I'll be focusing on just conventional for the sake of my knees and my hips. The other thing there is there's not a huge difference between my sumo and conventional. There's maybe a 5 or 7% difference. My best ever conventional is 300 kilos or 661 pounds. And my projected best ever sumo, just because I was peaked to hit this, was just over 700 pounds. That's about a 5% difference between those two movements. So I'm pretty confident that I could get back to the mid 600s with just conventional. Next is I won't be doing any SBD days for at least 4 to 6 blocks. It's great. It's great that I'm ambitious. It's great that I want to do singles, but I need to remember I took a long break from doing this. And the last thing I want to do is hurt myself even further by being a little bit too ambitious. So SBD days are getting scrapped. This is going to do wonders for my lower back because the thought of doing conventional deadlifts at the end of an SBD day doesn't really have me all that excited. So this means that conventional deadlifts will get their own day in the middle of the week. And the other huge thing is I'm not going to do any singles for at least a little while. It's great that I'm ambitious. It's great that I wanted to see where my strength was, but look at what it did. I got hurt. And I'm not trying to fearmonger or anything. This is probably just a freak accident, and I'm overthinking it a little bit, which I tend to do. But no singles is probably going to be very healthy for me. I'm getting a little bit more ahead of myself, but thinking super long term because I did not mention this in the last update. These are going to be happening in seasons, meaning running and powerlifting. So let's just say that I have a race in mind that I want to do really, really well at, either a half marathon or a full marathon. Powerlifting programming is not going to stop, but the volume and intensity is going to be pulled back pretty drastically. And same thing with powerlifting. If I have a meet in mind, then I'm going to be pulling back on the running volume pretty drastically and maybe just do something like incline walking on a treadmill just to keep my cardiovascular system relatively healthy. Though I could get ambitious one day and do a race and a meet in the same weekend, but I already got ambitious once. Let's not do that again. That's the video. I'm going to go eat some beef and rice and put a heat pad on my back. Like and subscribe.